I'm going to record this so people who aren't here can see it later. Who just joined via phone?
My name is Shamil.
All right. Welcome. I'm going to use the mute button for people. Andrew, I think you're getting a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback, I'm sure here. A bunch of people talking,
you can.
So I'll just mute myself.
And then to unmute yourself, you can just hold the space bar down. So that's a little pro tip.
Oh, cool. That works pretty well.
Minneapolis office can get a little boisterous in the afternoon. So I see Ermin hasn't signed on yet. He's walking around.
Yeah. We were celebrating the release of the Android app, so.
Nice. That was a long time coming. I know that the Android team has been, excited about getting up to close to parity. It's not like iOS is a moving target or anything, but it keeps working on that, and so I know that was difficult. The things that I just put in the brief agenda for the meeting, and this can change or be augmented, but talk a little bit about the Android release, talk a little bit about some recent HTTPS changes that we didn't communicate very well. All right, who's that? That was Jeanette, I believe, which totally fine, but just try to turn your volume down on your side about to halfway. That usually works pretty well. All right, someone else is on mobile. Android. All right, we got a good crew here forming. I thank you for joining, and for those of you who are joining with video, it's all the more welcome to see your smiling faces. And I was just going through the agenda for today. This can be augmented. We usually get some questions and get off topic a bit, especially after Ermin joins. But we'd like to talk about the Android release, some recent issues with changing the HTTP to require HTTPS, and what that meant for developers. Some updated device capability definitions that Bob's going to talk about in the IDE. I'll give a very brief update on the state of documentation. We're working on it, and then anything else that folks want to talk about. So for folks who aren't joined via audio or video, you can always type questions into the chat window, and we'll try to take those on as well as they come up. So what I wanted to do first is sort of get a show of hands, sort of virtually, of how many people are using the Android device versus iOS. Anyone primarily? Okay, John, Tyler. Okay, mobile Android doesn't have a name except for mobile Android, but okay, so definitely some folks using the new Android. I'm assuming that you've downloaded the latest version. Maybe even we can get some real-time feedback from you. But before that, I'd like to have Andrew, our newest Android developer, just briefly discuss the app and what's gone into it, and maybe even a preview of some of the things that are next.
All right, cool, thanks. Yeah, for those of you who aren't iOS developers, we've implemented the dashboard. I wish I could share my screen, cast this better, but iOS has had this dashboard, I guess, for a while. We've now implemented it. It's a nice feature that gives you an overview of everything that's going on in your house. So you click there's the settings over there that you can click, and from there you can set up applications to do things. So it tells me right now on this, it's saying that my back door is open or closed. They're all closed because I'm not there right now, and what lights are on. And that's a really nice feature instead of having to go and set up apps individually in the app screen. But that is, of course, still there in the side menu. So those are really the biggest, probably the features that were added in. There's also just installed it, so I have the wayfinders popping up. But there's a Hello Home kind of thing where I can tell my house that I am now going to bed with good night, and it's similar to text messaging my house. So that's another feature that was included with that. And we have the activity feed, which tells you everything that's going on. So right now I see the whole list of everything that's been going on with basically temperatures at all the different doors in my house, and it keeps going back so you can look up, the last time you were home, bunch of data in there. So that's really the newest features. If you haven't gotten it yet, I would recommend restarting your phone because that seems to trigger my Play Store updates for whatever reason. Yes, to go from there, is there any questions?
There's got to be questions on Android, I would expect.
Somebody's getting a phone call.
Yeah. Well, we can come back. As people join, they might have questions about Android. I feel like a lot of the folks on this call have probably played around with both versions, and so they're kind of familiar with the new features of Android too. But we can talk there. I know that Ermin just joined, and he's right on time to discuss some recent changes that we made and then reverted, I believe, about HTTPS. But I'll let him speak to that. Hey, Ermin.
How's it going?
Good.
So it's actually a quite simple change that we made. Using our API, if you're calling into SmartThings, now we force everyone to use HTTPS. It's basically the only change that will be required from here on out. We'll be updating all of our examples and documentation to support that pretty soon, probably by the end of the day. But yeah, we unfortunately didn't have enough time to. We thought it was going to be only internal stuff, but it ended up affecting all external API. And if you're using the web services smart app example that we made, then you're just going to have to change that to use HTTPS. That's basically it.
And in the future, our intention is to be much better about messaging changes like this beforehand, so people have enough time. And like Andrew said, that it was a little bit, we were caught off guard a little bit by that it was going to affect things outside of our internal group. So
actually, because of it, I had a cool idea that there would be a developer notification smart app that developers could install, and we could send out push notifications anytime we change something meaningful like that. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or anytime there's a new developer change, flash your lights or something.
All right. Do people have questions about that or the Android stuff that we just talked about? Usually these things go where we have about 10 minutes of material, and then the rest of it is like taking questions. So hopefully it will be good. But Bob, I think you're up next now with some discussion about the updated device capability definitions.
Okay. We're in the process of figuring out our strategy for and implementing finally the process for getting first device type handlers and then smart apps submitted and into a marketplace process. So I think over the next month or so, there'll be more information coming out incrementally about how that's going to work. What I wanted to show today, let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen, is a first iteration of that I think you might find useful just in sharing device types. This applies to device types, but we'll be doing something similar for smart apps as well. And I think it will make, even before we roll out the marketplace and the submission and approval process, it'll make things easier for sharing device type handlers amongst yourself. So let's see if I can share my screen here.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, you got that? So
yeah.
So what I'm going to do is just briefly illustrate this. Start off by creating a new device type, and this is the initial form is pretty much unchanged. I'll create a new device here. I'll make it a switch, so I'll pick a switch capability and maybe a refresh capability. Maybe I'll have a custom attribute for it. The same sort of thing you've done before, and I'm going to create that in the same way. And what you'll see is when you create this new device type, there's a new section here that wasn't there before in the metadata section, which is a definition section, and it has basically all in the same sort of metadata builder format, has all that information that I just added about capabilities, attributes, and commands, and which, if you've ever used someone else's device type, you have to go in and set every time you create a new device type. So it's generated that for me. If I go back to this form, you'll see that that's changed, and these things really aren't editable anymore in the form. To update them, they get updated in the code along with everything else. So if I wanted to go in here and add a switch level capability, I can do that. If I save this and go back and look at this page, you see that this gets updated along with it, with the capabilities. Then that applies to all of this information: attributes, commands, fingerprints, OAuth information. And so the basic thing that this will do for you is, if you get someone emailing or sharing or however you get this piece of code for a device type, all you really need to do, if we go into device types again, let me make a copy of this one. If I create a new device type here, I'll just call it something, which doesn't create much of a shell here, but if I copy this code into it, and so I got this code from someone else, when I save this and I go back, you can see it renames it and it sets all the capabilities and attributes. So we won't need to have sections in the comments anymore that tell people how to configure device types. A couple of other things you might have noticed when some of the standard capabilities like switch level, if you look at switch level has a set level that has, if you simulate switch level, you can actually specify for that command an attribute to be set in the simulator, but you could never do that before for commands in the in the IDE, but you can do that now. So if I wanted to add a custom command here, I could say command set and color, and I can give this arguments, so the level might be a number, the color might be some sort of RGB string. I can add an attribute, which is, we happen to have a color control capability, but if you didn't want to do that for some reason, you could do this. So I'll save that. If we go back, you can see that it set a set level and color that had these argument definitions. If we go back here and start the simulation, just start out with a virtual device, but this could be a real device as well. Now in this command section at the bottom, whereas before, if you created a custom set level and color, you would have just gotten a button that said set level and color. You can actually add, for a custom command as well as the standard set level command, arguments and send those arguments to the device type handler. As I said, this is going to roll out probably not with this Thursday's release, but with next Thursday's release, along with a similar capability for smart apps. It's, smart apps generally don't need to satisfy capabilities, so so it's not quite as much of a burden there, but we want to be consistent. And the overall goal here that also fits in the publication strategy is that the code for an app or device type becomes a complete description of that app or device type and all of its capabilities and ways of interacting with it. Any questions?
Well, I know that Todd was cheering you on in the comments section. He thought this stuff is is great. So yeah, it's looking good. I know that we've got a few more IDE enhancements up our sleeve that we'll hope to integrate for the next release as well. I'm not ready to share them totally, but there's some things that Ryan's working on as far as like making it just easier to code in the smart apps, and I've been working on a few sort of visual tweaks to just improve the experience. I was hoping to have that ready to share today, but alas, no.
And we also, I don't know if you shared it already, but we've engaged a documentation effort with some considerable resources. And particular interest for you experienced guys is we're looking at now generating the reference documentation. It pretty much was fixed in time back to July when I wrote it to begin with. And so the approach going forward is that we'll have reference documentation that gets generated from annotations in the code base. And so it's not a guarantee that it'll be up to date, but it's certainly more likely to be kept up to date than before. And there's some other forms of documentation we're looking at developing as well.
That was a good segue into the next section, which is to say that we have made it a priority to get that documentation updated and more full. We've hired someone to work full time on that basically for the next 2 months. That kicked off last week, and we're happy with how it's working. I think we've got some strategies in place to make both code samples and other things more robust and easy to update, as Bob mentioned. In fact, pulling them from the code and running tests against them, so if they ever do break, we'll have to update those. That'll be updated in the documentation. So I think it's a good step forward. I'm looking to see what we can do between now and like 6 or 8 weeks from now to just get some of the new documentation out and in people's hands. Maybe especially for the core team of developers doing some things, but definitely know that documentation isn't a priority since we've been doing so much new development that hasn't been documented, and you guys want to take advantage of that too. So definitely doing that. So I mean that for me, and I'm kind of looking at the chat string as we go. Dave's got a comment about he's a SmartThings newbie, but seasoned developer. Where do we find info on calling the API? That's probably a good question for Bob to answer, and because especially since there's a few different APIs floating around out there, I want to make sure to point him in the right direction.
Yeah, the right API in the general term of any kind of interface. There's really two of them. Let me share my screen again. So there is documentation. As Ben said, the documentation is kind of a work in progress. There was a documentation site before, and we're in the process of rewriting a lot of that and migrating it. There is this, once you log in and hit the become a developer link, there is this documentation link here. And this is reference documentation. So there's a couple things to talk about here. When you talk about API, if the basic way of doing development in SmartThings is creating device types and smart apps, and so I was just showing you a device type here. So there is API documentation, reference Java docs sort of ish documentation that will show you what the API is, what the functions are that you can call within a device type.
Is everyone seeing Bob's screen?
Are you?
No.
No.
I'm not.
Did I not share
It's
it?
not coming up.
No, you might have to unshare and share again.
Oh, yeah, it was a confirmation that, sorry about that.
No problem.
How about now?
It's good now.
Yep.
Okay, so in this link, there's a documentation link. There's a list here, and so the main API for creating a smart app, which is likely the first thing you're going to want to do, what I would suggest is just create one. If you're starting out, the first thing to do is to create a simple smart app. You can run that in the simulator, and you can run it with your devices that you purchased. And so the way to do that is just to click here, create one. You can give it any sort of name. can give it a description. You can leave most of this other stuff alone for now. And this will fill in the shell, but the best thing to do here is just, there's a whole bunch of examples, and these really are not, it's not all the apps that the system has, but these are real apps. So, something, like a popular one, like Light Follows Me is an app that essentially turns on a switch when there's motion. And so if you purchased an outlet and a motion sensor, you'll be able to use this app right away. You can start with that, and you can get going and get something running right away. Once you get to a point of doing something more and you want to take a look at what you can do with an app, you can go into this documentation. And so this reference documentation it's certainly not any kind of tutorial or beginning to end thing, which is part of what Ben was referring to, we're working on, but it is a reference documentation. So we'll give you explanations of everything that you saw that got generated for you in that example app. And you'll see a lot of references here for doing a lot of other things, including there's an integration to Weather Underground. You can make HTTP REST calls to other web services and do all sorts of things, as well as interact with SmartThings itself. So a combination of those two things is is the best place to get started, depending on what you want to do first, which is typically build an app and do something. It's a little more involved to build a new device type, but there's documentation for device types as well, and there's several other kinds of domain entities here, so that if you are in a Smart App and if we go back to our example here, here's a motion sensor, motion 1. Here's a set of switches called switches. If you want to know, those are devices, and if you want to see what you can do with a device, that's another domain entity here, and you can see reference document for it. So if you want to get the current, value of the switch, of the level attribute of a dimmer, you can make that current value level call there. And so this will get you started with the main API for SmartThings. If you're talking about a REST API, the approach there is generally that you can define and build your own REST API within a Smart App and define whatever endpoints you need. And there is on the site a pretty complete description that we're going to be updating for how to go about doing that and creating your own endpoints if you want to do some sort of integration calling into SmartThings from another system. You can also, with the HTTP calls I just showed you, you can make calls out to another system as well.
Is that within this documentation, Bob, or where exactly? Because Dave and Morgan are both mentioning that interest of calling into SmartThings from external software.
So that is not part of this link unless it's one of these. These are just links. We updated this recently, I think. Links. These are just links to the forums.
Right.
So we'll need to get that. I don't have that at my disposal where exactly that is right now, but
okay.
But we should get that and post it prominently if it's not. If it's not already someplace, but there is a kind of a step-by-step process for doing that.
All right. So in the meeting notes, or after this, when I post the video, I will post a link to that as well. Morgan has a question. Will those endpoints on the Smart App be available via the local hub or in the cloud?
They're available in the cloud.
Yeah.
Right. So
There's not much available in the hub right now.
Right. I mean, we do have LAN connected devices. They're in labs right now, so you need the right firmware. And we do support through LAN connected devices the ability of devices to have webhooks, like the Sonos integration makes use of, your Sonos player actually does call the hub. But in general, the way of integration would be through cloud endpoints, and they're it's OAuth based, so you can and that's part of what I kind of skipped over here. Let me go back to this. So if in actually I was showing a device type. We don't have the metadata generation for Smart Apps to demo yet. But if you're creating a Smart App and you kind of the first step, I'll get you started on it, is to just click this enable OAuth here. This will define a client ID that you use as part of your endpoint, and a secret that you use in the token generation. You can provide some additional information here, and so that's essentially the first step for creating a smart app that has OAuth. OAuth, or rather, can define API endpoints. Let me check and see if we. Oops. Makes me describe something here. Yeah, we don't have. I was looking to see if the example's not here. As Ben said, we'll need to post that in the notes. The reference to the documentation, the IFT integration between SmartThings and IFT makes use of this capability. There's an IFT smart app that gets installed actually from the IFT site, and you can do that as well. So you don't necessarily have to go in and install the smart app manually. In SmartThings, you can actually do this in a way where the smart app is installed by the authentication process from the site, and that's exactly how IFT works. It's built, with 100% completely this capability, nothing extra, so you could do the same sort of integration.
All right. I would imagine there's a few other things that have been added into the IDE that haven't maybe been introduced. I wanted to show a few of those. Basically just one really, but if you want to, if you look at this, I am hopefully sharing my screen. We know that web-based IDEs aren't always the best, and writing in your own preferred IDE is usually what you want to do, but we've done a few things where you can actually change some settings and themes within the IDE itself, so you can kind of change like how you want it to look and that sort of thing. You can also change the key mapping from Emacs and Vim to the default, which I'm not sure what the default is, but that's what I usually do. And the other thing I wanted to show is already mentioned by Bob, you can browse through smart apps, and this is the way I learned to write smart apps, is by looking at examples and then tweaking them to fit my purposes. There's a lot of them that have already been published, and that's what these are. But then if you click on this link up here, Bob, is this accessible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So the shared smart apps link will actually open a modal, big modal that sort of shows all the a number of different smart apps that have actually been shared by other members of the community, and it's also a great way to see just what people are doing if they've when they've chosen to select some of these things. And I don't know, I really like seeing this stuff, and so you can always just get in there, and I think it's kind of easy to miss. I found it by accident one day. So again, that's up in the browse smart apps area. So yeah, there's more coming here, but yeah, like as Bob said, we're rolling things out as soon as we can. Earliest things for some of them will be next Thursday, which, in case you guys don't know, we try to do new deployments every Thursday. Oh man, Todd. All right. Eric, it looks like you joined a little bit late. You had a lot of questions last week. What do you got for us this week? You sound like you might be on mute. No, now you're muted. It looks like you're off mute, but you're being quiet. All right. Maybe you'll be typing. While Eric is looking at his audio setup, it might just be the BlueJeans. There's a gear that allows you to choose your microphone. It might be choosing a different microphone. Todd, I don't know exactly what's in tomorrow's release. It's probably nothing fun. Do you know anything about that, Bob?
Yeah, I have not been that closely coupled to the release. I don't think there's all that much fun stuff. There's some stuff going on with concerning encryption, so that we can support one of the issues with some of the LAN integrations or rather cloud integrations is that there are a couple of sites that don't support OAuth, and so you need to ask users to enter passwords, and so we're going to internally encrypt those things so that you can feel better about doing that and having someone enter passwords that might be sensitive and not have them be compromised. But beyond that, I don't know if a whole lot for the development community in this release. We're even though we broke things with apologize for that with HTTPS, we held off on this metadata stuff for a week to make sure that we don't mess up your editors for you. One thing I should mention about that as well is that we're not going to, as part of this change, as you saw, you won't be able to edit capabilities anymore in the form, but we're not going to go in and change your source code for you. What's going to happen is if you have, when you click on the code button for the first time, we'll pre-populate that section with the capability definitions and put the editor in a unsaved state so you can confirm that we got it right. It looks pretty reliable from the testing we've done, and then save your device type. So we're not going to be migrating your code other than in front of your eyes for you when we roll this out next week.
All right, so John did ask about TCP Lights, and Todd answered, waiting on a hub update. I know that we're working with a few different TCP Light solutions, and you've got one kind of working, Todd, but I wanted to ask you, what hub firmware do you actually want? Like, you could probably get any hub firmware version you want. You're quiet too. You typing?
Testing.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
I hear you, Eric.
You got me. Okay.
Yeah.
Still not sure what was wrong.
That's weird.
So my progress was outstanding. When we talked a couple of weeks ago, one of the things I wanted to try and do was see if I could trigger recording on my IP cameras, which are aggregated on iSpy. And I was able to do that through the hub. So I was able to do it on my LAN so that I didn't have to do port forwarding or anything like that. And that's actually working reliably. But I do have one question about it. Right now I'm running in the emulator, and it seems to be running quite reliably. I tried publishing it, and I saw it appear on my apps, but when I tried to install it, it gave me a message saying it had crashed.
Was that the phone that crashed or the app? You got the message?
I think it was the app. It didn't even crash all of the SmartThings app. It just seemed to crash the install of my smart app.
I don't know. Potentially, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get any kind of errors that you could see in the mobile app?
No. Good news is it's running fine in the emulator.
Yeah, and it reliably crashes on trying to install. I mean,
every time I've tried to install it, I get the same thing. I get a little black box down at the bottom that says it crashed, and a message has been sent to someone who cares.
All right. Well, we can try to track some of that down. You're on iOS, is that correct?
No, I'm on Android.
Okay. And
I'm on the beta
version. Okay.
I'm on the beta. So I'm not complaining.
Well, the good news is, the beta is now the final release. You can go to the Play Store and download a version that's at least as up to date as yours. As of today at about 2 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
So
if you're on the beta, it should have actually promoted you to release, I believe.
Oh, really?
So I don't think you need to do it. Yeah, I don't think you need to do anything.
And Andrew, are you one of the people who get those error messages?
I'm under beta.
When the app crashes, who gets those messages right now?
We get them. I can look them up right now, actually.
I mean, yeah, if you can kind of, I mean, I don't know, maybe you could make it happen again, Eric. And,
yeah, I'm going to give it a try.
Sort of look at it. Nice find, Bob. You got the.
Yeah, I just posted the link to that web services document. It's a little out of date, but it should be good enough, and we'll be updating it as part of this overall documentation effort.
When I hit the Configure Smart app under my apps with the name of the app, I get SmartThings has crashed. I can't read it fast enough. Let me try it again.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's.
So again, I go into my apps.
That sounds like an error that we'd be getting. So.
I called the app Motion Triggers iSpy something or other. Truncated.
What phone do you have?
SmartThings has crashed, but a report has been sent to the developer.
What phone are you running on?
It's an HTC One X.
All right.
Okay. That'll just help me look it up. So.
Yeah. Anyway, no crisis. As I say, I'm quite happy with how far I got and being able to use the emulator and cutting pieces of code from people's apps that I didn't really understand, but I just kept trying until it worked.
Yeah.
That's a time-honored way of doing development, I found.
Yeah.
Copying code that I don't really completely understand.
Yep.
Which may have something to do with why it crashes. I don't know.
We can help you get to the bottom of that. What else? What do people have questions about? We still got we got 20 minutes or more. So, Ermin, you're very quiet.
I've got one of these things.
Okay.
Which I've already got one that's working just fine, and I got another one, and I tried to install it, and I can't get it to do anything. It doesn't seem to recognize it, and I'm kind of stuck. I've tried doing the factory reset.
Yeah.
I tried setting it about 6 inches away from the hub in hopes that maybe it was a reception problem, but no dice.
You get those both from us?
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. Well, it sounds like you might have, maybe just won the negative lottery and got a bad one. I would definitely say contact support. Support at SmartThings. Mention that you know how to factory reset it and it's not working. They'll probably just ask. They'll probably send you a new one and ask you to send that one back.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't think that's very common with those, but they are a new device for us, so we appreciate the feedback on that. Morgan is asking what the process for hub firmware updates being pushed out. Do we need to request them, or are they pushed out to all hubs? And what is the process for that? So Morgan, we're sort of defining a process now. We don't do mass hub updates. We kind of do them in rolling batches currently. I'm willing to say anyone who joins this call is able to sort of get in the front of the queue if they want those updates. And part of that is if you haven't already been added to the labs release, I would say you should do that, and that'll automatically get you in for a hub update. But if there are specific things that you believe the firmware update will do, and you're looking for that, I'd be interested in hearing what those are, especially if you've already got labs access.
Whoever that was, I can't actually see who was talking. My screen's actually just black and I can hear.
Probably Aaron.
About the smart app that was crashing. Do you know what version you're on? If you go to support help us debug. There should be.
So in the app, go to
support about.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the build number is there.
I could, but I just went to the Google store and saw that I've got the update and it's downloading right now.
All right. So you should just test it
Okay.
again after you get that version, and we'll see.
Yeah, it should be only a few more seconds.
Okay.
All right, cool.
So Morgan, if you do want Labs access and don't have it, just send me an email. I'm typing my email in now. Okay, you have Labs access. Okay. I don't know that there's anything to be gained from getting any further versions of the hub firmware other than what Labs has. I think Labs is going to be sort of kept up to date as we roll out new things. And you'll probably be getting those. There is a place. I never remember what's like available publicly and what's available not. But Ermin, is the window for like rolling out new firmware updates, is that a maintenance window? Is that a thing for everyone?
No, just for internal.
All right. I think eventually we'll probably set that up where you can set your own maintenance window of when you'd like to have updates delivered.
Oh, that you can set your maintenance window. We're just not doing anything with it right now.
Okay. So yeah, set it, and once you want it, once we start rolling them out, it'll roll out at 2 a.m. or whenever you want it. But you mentioned you're looking at adding TCP lights. Todd, you're doing stuff with TCP lights? You haven't had to update your firmware from the hub stuff, have you? Or from the lab stuff, or do you think that there is a firmware update you need for that?
There is one. They found one yesterday that needs to be implemented.
All right.
It was dropping about every.
No, there's a lot of significant changes between when we first started rolling out Labs firmware to what we have now.
Right. But it's for new device types that are coming on. So, and I know that, Todd, we were looking at maybe TCP lights being the next Labs offering. I'm not positive that we'll be able to do it yet, but I think that's one that's coming. So that might necessitate us rolling out a new firmware update to anyone in Labs or anyone in Labs who wants that.
Yeah, we
nice
should.
feature.
Right. The even some of the existing things in Labs like Sonos, pretty much anything that is doing LAN-based connectivity is works best with the latest version that Doug just posted, 11.603. So,
all right.
When did that go out?
It's just waiting for QA right now. It hasn't really gone out. So if somebody got it early, I guess I got lucky at some point. But the 603 stuff is just waiting for QA at this point. So when it gets done with the QA verification, everybody should be able to get it in Labs.
Well, if you want to push it to me for some more testing, I'm fine. I'm at 600 right now.
Yeah. We can figure out how to do all those things. But yeah, that's a good point. So once it clears QA, and I don't think that's like a super long process, but that's I don't know exactly how we're pushing that out to everyone. Is it still a request system, Ermin, or are we just going to do it for everyone in Labs, do you think?
No, it's going to be just probably everybody. The only problem is it'll temporarily take your presence tags offline, so we're going to have to notify everybody that we're doing it first. But
when you
once
say
that's released,
you mean everyone or everyone in Labs?
No, everybody. There's no distinction on who's Labs or who's not, other than if we've rolled it out to you previously. Any Labs roll has been done manually by support. This is going to be a broader rollout. And then once that's done, it'll be like TCP bulbs will be in Labs too.
Actually, the presence tags don't go off if you're already on Labs. It's just if you're going from an old release to a Labs release. It's just that first step to get to Labs, your presence tags would go off, but after that, they should not be affected.
All right.
So back to the question of my version. I'm now on 1.5.0 build 1000, and I just tried to install and configure the smart app. I got the same crash.
All right. Hopefully, Andrew will be looking at that. What else? What else do we got? People have been working on something with the last 2 weeks since the last office hour. Uh, what are some of the things that you've found that you are missing that you want, or the things you've seen that you'd like us to investigate? I know there's a few things that have just been starting to ship that we've talked about integrating, including both PlantLink and Lockatron. PlantLink integration is a bit further along. Lockatron is not yet integrated, but certainly could be. We got a few questions in the chat. One's from Jeff. Might have missed this, but local LAN access for things like thermostat or FOSCAM. Urban, you want to take that? I did, and also Todd just mentioned the air conditioner that Quirky announced. I think they already tweeted something about integrating with SmartThings, but I'm not positive. Herman, you're not going to mention anything. I see you posted something about Wemo and Insight switches.
I can do the FOSCAM.
Okay.
The FOSCAM stuff is being worked on right now and is in process. There's just a little bit of weirdness with their API because all of their devices are slightly different. So it's trying to use or actually take advantage of what we can from them and be able to discover the device types, since all of them are a little weird. But I'm not sure what the time frame is for those, but those are close. FOSCAM. I'm not sure which thermostat specifically you're looking for, but it will require the new 600 series firmware for both.
Okay. And I don't know which thermostats are like that. I know that we're really close on Ecobee as well. That's a Wi-Fi one. Can't think of the other ones. 3M50 Z-Wave module is crap and causes nothing but issues. I think that's the one I have, Jeff. But I haven't seen. I mean, I guess I don't really do that much with it, other than set it when I leave and arrive. But I'd be interested to hear some of your issues that you have had with it. What, Ermin? I saw you shake your head, but you were muted. Oh, that's a bad thing to have happen, Jeff. He says that when the thermostat's plugged in, all of his Z-Wave devices don't work. Yeah, that would be a reason not to use it. It's also very strange. So Shane joined. He was asking about the Harmony integration and the timeline for this.
I'm back. I was ignoring. What I miss?
Well, I don't care what you missed, but do you know anything more about the Harmony integration and the status of that?
No, but I know exactly who does.
Who?
Look, the people want to know about Harmony.
Look at that.
Where is it at?
We want to know. Give him a microphone and ask him about the timeline.
What's the timeline? He says 2018. Sounds like a good time.
Is that all you're going to give us, Sermon? Are you really going to do that?
Yeah. That's all I'm going to give you.
I think we should provide something more, but we can't. We're still working pretty closely with Logitech on it, and I just don't know if we have the like capability to even like say where we're at. I don't think that it's something that's going to be like months away though. Do you get that impression, Ermin?
No, well, maybe it depends on what technical hurdles we need to jump. Which I think it's too early to tell exactly. But it also we're not sure exactly what it's going to be, so it's still pretty in planning stages.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's still some fluidity in where that is. I know that some internal tests have like shown some cool things, but yeah, sorry we can't be more specific.
Is there anything new on the Sonos front?
There is, and Bob is here still, so he can talk about it.
Yeah, so there's a set of apps that it's really gets back to what we were talking about before with the 603 firmware. So we have a set of apps that are like in review now that are much more reliable as far as restoring the Sonos and restoring the metadata about the track that was playing, and just generally more reliable. They're dependent on the 603 firmware, and so I think all this is going to be pretty quick. We actually talked about pushing them out this week, I think, but it was the completing QA with the firmware that was holding them up. The one thing that we haven't taken on yet is the dealing with the group topology of the Sonos, and so it's kind of a empirical process to find out if you have a number of players grouped, which one actually will work, and which all of them you can control the volume, but only one of them will stop and start and play music or sounds or whatever, and it's kind of hard to tell even from the Sonos app which one that is. The data is all there. It's just a question of continuing to extend the device types to keep track of it. So I think that from the point of view of making it a really solid system, this is going to be a big step, and then the final thing will be dealing reliably with groups, so that if you say if you want to play something on a grouped set of players and you've changed groups, we can reliably play on the one that you played on. It does work if you pick the right one. It will play on all of them just as you expect. It's just a question of right now we're dealing with them without any knowledge of the grouping, and so that's probably the last major thing on the roadmap for Sonos.
When you say groups, are you talking about like stereo pairs or stereo pairs with a sub?
Well, that or just groups.
I mean, like
there's
grouping them.
Right. There's two cases. In the case of stereo pairs, there is the same issue right now, but with stereo pairs, the volume control, it will control, both pairs or the subwoofer or whatever. Groups are a separate thing where that's like a more temporary thing. You might put your house in party mode and you group everything in the house and you want to play the same track on all of it. And so in that case, volume controls of each device continue to work because you can adjust the volume separately in each in each player. But if you've set up one of the apps to play the weather report in the morning, and it's pointing to a player that you then change the grouping of that player, it may just stop working, and that's because we're still sending the command to that Sonos, but it just doesn't respond to those commands. And so what we need to do is have those device types subscribe to group changes and know kind of who's the master of the group and who to send the commands to automatically. Now, if you go into the app and experiment and pick each of the players, you should be able to find one that will work again. But it's just that every time you change your groups, you run the risk of breaking one of the apps right now. And so that's
I wasn't all that concerned about the whole groups thing. If the stereo pairs would work and if the party mode would work, I could use the party mode, for example, for something like an alarm where you want it to broadcast to everything. And, the groups, since I knew they were dynamic, I didn't realize you were going to even take that on. So good for you.
Yeah, well, right. And so, I mean, that's a good, there's actually two things. One is just to be aware of them so that if you did configure the app to play on a particular player, it would continue to work. That's our first objective.
Yeah.
But what you mentioned about LARM is something else we'd like to eventually get there as well. If you're going to use the system for an alarm, you obviously want to play on all of them, regardless of how they're grouped. And I mean, you could do that now by, if we only support single selection in the app right now. We've talked about changing that to multiple selection, but the problem is if you play the same sound independently on ungrouped players, you know what you'll get, which is, a bunch of people talking at not quite the same time. Right? So we don't want to do that. But once we get this firmware out, I think we can make some progress on that. And of course, if anybody wants to, we'll share that code as well. So if anybody wants to do a little digging around, we'll appreciate the help as well.
Yeah, I wanna extend the gratitude to Bob. He has worked really hard on the Sonos integration for a number of weeks, having it being sprung on him as he got off the plane pretty much in Vegas at CES, that he had to work on Sonos. And so I appreciate all of that for sure. And he's done it all by kind of reverse engineering what Sonos has been doing. And now we've actually been given a rep at Sonos. Sonos is really keen on helping us to advance this further. And so I think we'll see a lot of advancing in the Sonos space with SmartThings. Morgan's asking another question here. I know there's a lot of workaround. There's a workaround for the Aeon Z-Wave power strip by using virtual devices, but is there a plan to support that device without having to set up virtual devices? So you mean, Morgan, then specifically being able to control the individual outlets on that strip? Yeah. I don't know much about that. I know, Bob, you've looked at that too, huh?
I looked at it originally, and of course it paired as a single switch, and you can control the whole thing, but it would obviously be nice to control the individual ones. We're looking at how to best represent that at the various places in the app. I don't have an update on where we are with that, but the idea would be ultimately we like to represent both the device as a whole, in case you want to turn the whole thing on and off, and the constituent pieces, along with cues that let you know that you're not just dealing with 4 separate devices. So I mean that's the strategy there. I don't have a time frame to announce there, but right. This is a general issue that's not just with the Aeon strip, where we have something that's electronically one device, but logically more than one device, and so where we want to head is to represent that both the constituent components and the device itself in the UI in a way that you can tell that they're associated.
Yep. Same things happening currently with the Quirky stuff. There's a Quirky Pivot Genius that Todd has been working on, that device type, and so same sort of thing. But yeah, it's sort of on all these devices. It sort of is a popularity contest as to how they get prioritized. And the two ways that those get prioritized are a lot of people are buying it and requesting it, and or a company comes to us and says, we want you to integrate with this, and they make it a priority as well. So we try to work through those things. There's so many devices out there, so hopefully that will be one that gets in there soon. Todd says, I'm more popular, but Bob's better looking. Nice. All right. Well, we have 1 minute. Who wants to close this thing out with either a question or a comment? All right. Are we going to leave it stand at Bob being better looking as the last thing? All right. Sounds good.
I can't compete with that.
Thanks everyone for joining us this week. Look for us, this again in 2 weeks on Wednesday. Feel free to send your feedback either to me privately or on the blog post, and we'll continue to try to improve these meetings and in all of our communications with our developers. So, thanks a lot.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.